Hey everybody, welcome to SVC Sports Weekly, your weekly audio broadcast hosted by Mike Nosek and Dave Gage, discussing everything Southern Vermont College athletics. Dave, last week we saw the opening week 4 men's and women's basketball in conference play, New England Collegiate Conference that is, and some close losses. Women came away with a win over Wheelock College. First win of the season, and a pretty good showing by the women's side, a 60-43 win there here at home.
Yeah, you know, we had been talking last week. We previewed the games and talked a lot about how the non-conference schedule would prepare the team for conference games, and I think on both sides it showed that the non-conference schedule has prepared both teams. Although the men's team didn't get a win, they had some very close games in conference play, and same thing with the women's side. Like you said, they got a win, and they played pretty decently against Newberry, especially in the first half on Saturday.
Yeah, and that win over Wheelock College, freshman captain now, Amber Flagg, had 12 points, 4 assists, and 5 steals. A couple more freshmen, Mariah Anthony and Marissa Myers, both having 8 points. So you're starting to see, you know, the players gather some confidence, gather their styles, and mix them well together in order to work the ball, come away with the good, clean shots. You know, Marissa finds those open three-pointers, and she's not afraid to pull the trigger. So that's definitely a positive to see as the semester comes to a close here. And, you know, they come back in January with a few non-conference games, but then they'll be right back into the conference schedule before they know it.
Yeah, and I think, you know, you hit it on the head. They played really well. They took care of the ball. And, you know, just played a pretty good game, winning by 17. Pretty impressive to open at home. It was the home opener, so it was a real good game, and the team played pretty well on last Tuesday night.
Yeah, then they lost against the Sage Colleges here on their home court, 77-44. Sage came out with an early full court press, and you know, deer in the headlights might be a term to use when talking about the Mountaineers. And that, I don't know if they've seen that full court press or if they weren't expecting it, but it caused to some early turnovers. They got behind and weren't quite able to really make up over the course of the game.
Yeah, I think, you know, it goes back to being young. The whole full court press for a team of freshmen, and they're going to make mistakes, and that's, I think Sage took advantage of that, knowing what we had, and like you said, they came out full court press. They took advantage of it, got up to an early lead, and, you know, just sort of rode the wave the rest of the way and came away with the victory there. But it didn't really hurt us going into Saturday. I think we responded well, and like I said, the first half against Newberry was played pretty well for us.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, they were only down by 3 at the break. I don't know if Newberry was somehow able to get that Sage tape, because it seemed like they took a page out of their book, and come in the second half, they were, I think it was a half-court press, but still, you know, close, smothering defense. You know, they jumped out to a little bit more of a lead and ended up with a 58-45 win here again at the Mountaineer Athletics Center on the SVC campus. But if you're going to take anything away from that game, it's, again, you know, Newberry is a pretty good team, and we hung with them for the first half. We didn't let the get away completely. You know, almost started chipping away there in the end of the second half to cut the deficit. And really, it's not like they got blown out by any proportion. So, again, looking at the positives of things, they're starting to gel well. For such a young team, you can see that if this turns into a snowball effect, come late January, early February, they could be, you know, a playoff contender.
Yeah, and, you know, talking with head coach Mike Quinn, he said it was a tale of two halves in both of their losses. And you know, the Newberry game, they struggled in the second half a little bit with the press, had 21 turnovers, and it just goes back to the fact of this team has to take care of the ball. You know, being young, they're going to make mistakes, and hopefully they can fix that. But I think you're exactly right. After the break here, you know, they're going to continue to gel together and become a pretty good team, and maybe even be a playoff contending team at the middle to end of January and into February.
Yeah, Flagg there last week averaged 16.3 points across the 3 games, 3.7 assists. She had a week-high 19 points in the loss to Sage. 24 for 25 overall from the free throw line for a 96th percentile. And that's pretty good. You know, she's ranking first in the conference for free throws, 85.5% overall. I don't know if you could really call it Ray Allen-esque, but, you know, for a college player, that's pretty good.
Yeah, you know, the free throw shooting is it's a lost art in the college game, especially. You know, you look at team statistics, and 62, 63. It doesn't matter. Teams coming in, teams that are south. And for a college athlete to shoot 85.3% for the season so far and 24 for 25 in a week is really impressive. And you can't leave points out there, especially, they're called free throws for a reason. They're free points. And we do have to convert, and for a player to be able to shoot that well is impressive, and congrats to her.
And then, she goes to the line, and it's not like she rushes herself. She definitely gets in the zone, gets focused, makes the officials count out, and I think they've come close to that 10-second call a handful of times, but she always seems to pull the trigger before, and nothing but net on most occasions. So again, as you mentioned, those are easy points. She drives the lane hard. She picks up the fouls. She's a small player. So when she gets, her feet moving quickly, now all of a sudden those taller defensive players are having to, kind of recoup, and a lot of the times they're fouling her, send her to the line, get those easy points. Well, again, they should be easy, not so much in most cases, but she's converting pretty good early on here, and I see no reason why that won't continue into the second semester. The women have one more game before the break. They play Green Mountain College here at Southern Vermont College on Wednesday night. That's a 7 o'clock tip when the Eagles come in. Green Mountain kind of struggling a little bit early on in the season here. They're 1-7, so I wouldn't say it's a easy win by any stretch, but it's a game that is definitely attainable.
Yeah, it's a game that we're going to have to play well. They're going to come in looking at our record. We should go in looking at their record, and it's definitely going to be a competitive game. But, like you said, if Amber can play well and a couple other players can step up and shoot the ball pretty well, we should come out on the winning side of things.
It's hard to draw comparisons sometimes, but again, we lost 77-44 to Sage. They lost 74-41. However, they did play Newberry back in late November, and they only lost by 3 points. So it depends on if they show up and they're ready to go. It's not a far drive for them by any stretch, right up in Poultney. They could easily make this a very, very close game.
Yeah, I expect a very tight game to be played between both teams. I think you're going to see, similar style of play and a lot of run and gun, but teams that are going to try to get to the line, try to get some layups, and at the same time shoot some threes. So I expect a competitive game on Wednesday night, and it'll be another good one for the fans here at SVC.
Absolutely. Again, that's a 7 p.m. tip when Green Mountain comes in to visit on Wednesday, the date being 12/12/12, and we hope to see you there. Going over to the men's side now, they also started conference play, as we mentioned. Unfortunately, they lost both matches here on the home court as well. Elms College by 2 points, Newberry College by 4 points. So you look at their record, and the record may not be truly indicative of how this team is playing. Unfortunately, they just end up on the wrong side of the scoreboard.
Yeah, and we talk, again, I'm going to mention it again, preparation of non-conference games. You go and play Williams College, who's top 25. You play Middlebury College, who's ranked number 3 this week in the country. It's going to prepare you for conference play. And that's what, Coach McDonough and Coach Mamersky, they have prepared this team to play. The issue now is finding ways to win. Again, a very young team. And a lot of times at the college level, and we talked a lot about this during soccer season, is freshmen don't necessarily know how to win. They know how to play and they can compete, but when it comes to actually winning the game, they don't make the necessary moves. And we saw that Tuesday night against Elms College when we had the ball 62-62 tie and no shot clock. Shot clock was off, and we take a shot with 15 seconds left. That's just a mistake that a veteran team doesn't make. A veteran team takes a shot with 4 or 5 seconds left, and if you miss, you go to overtime. Oh well, that's a mistake that we learn from. Hopefully, Elms is a good team. We played them tight, and we responded well Saturday against Newberry.
Yeah, in between there, back on Thursday, Union College came in 86-60 loss. The score, you might say, well, Union kind of ran away with it. Not really so much. We were hanging around. I think we closed the deficit to about 7 or 9 points a handful of times, and it just couldn't keep the momentum. They would take a timeout and come out and hit a 3 or whatever it was. And, there's nothing wrong with losing the non-conference games. Obviously, you would like to win them. But again, when you look at the conference games, losing by 2 or 4 points, it means that come January, as this team continues to progress, they have the ability to pick up those wins and pick up those close games and hopefully find their way into the postseason. And it's absolutely way too early to discount that possibility. There's a lot of basketball to be played, a lot of work that I'm sure the guys are going to put in before the end of the season. So Mountaineer fans, absolutely no time to panic. They got one more game here as well before the end of the semester, and they get a few weeks of break. Hopefully come back rested and ready to go.
Yeah, and the other thing is Elms College won the conference last year. They won the tournament. They didn't win the regular season, but they ended up winning the tournament and going to the NCAA. So to lose a 2 to them, that's no slouch of a loss. That's a pretty good team, and it should say, we played some pretty good teams this week. You like to win at home, but at the same time, like you said, absolutely no time to panic. We got a good team this year, and I'm excited to see what they bring the second semester.
In the 3 games last week, senior captain Tayshawn Johnson averaged 19.3 points and 8.3 rebounds. The season, he's averaging 21.9 points and 9.5 rebounds. So if you want to round, he's averaging a double-double. If you don't, he's decimal points off from doing that. He has the ability to almost take over the game and either help his team close the gap or stay in a close game. You certainly see him doing that. Other players as well pitching in. Travis Severs was starting at the beginning of the season. He's now coming off a bench, but he provides a spark that creates momentum, gets the team going, hits a big 3-pointer to make an 8-point game only a 5-point game, and it's those good positives that you can appreciate and know that you can almost rely on them for certain as you go into the rest of the conference schedule.
Yeah, absolutely. Travis has been a tremendous spark off the bench, and every time he comes off, he quickly closes the gap with, like you said, a big 3. And he may only finish the game with 9 points or 11 points or something like that, but those 9 to 11 points or whatever he scores are big points for our team. And Tuesday night he hit a couple big 3s to move us to tie the game, I believe, and Saturday he hit a couple big 3s to move the game within 2 before Newberry hit the shot on the other end to go up 4. But like you said, Trav brings a very good spark off the bench for the Mountaineers.
Yeah, as I mentioned, they only have one more game remaining before the winter break. That is this Thursday down at MCLA, so not a far drive for them by any stretch. That is a 7 p.m. match as well. And it's not often that you face a team that's out of the conference twice in a season, but this will be the case as they played the Trailblazers back on November 30th in the Tri-State Shootout. Found themselves on the end that they would not like to be on, 98-86 loss at RPI in that tournament. And it's, when you've already seen the team, you already know who their go-to players are. And do you think that they'll be able to utilize what they know from that and come away with a win on Thursday?
Yeah, I think so. Our team does a lot of film sessions, and I'm sure they have the film. And to be able to see what the other team did well against us is a lot better than watching a film where you see a team doing something well against another opponent. So I think it'll help us, but at the same time, they're going to be in the film room the same thing and looking at what we did well against them. So it'll be a good game. The last game was close. It finished with a 12-point game, but it was tight for the majority of the game, and should be an interesting one over at MCLA.
MCLA comes in at 2-6, a tough 3-point loss at Keene State on Sunday. They let up, I think it's 89 points per game, so we definitely have the potential to bust it open if we can get clicking and hopefully come away with a win to end the fall semester and get things rolling as we go into conference play. They come back from the break and they're right back at it with a game against Daniel Webster and then Regis and Mitchell all before classes begin. So it might help a little bit that they don't have to worry about classes and homework, tests, etc. and just focus on those conference games. Actually, their whole second semester schedule is conference play except for when Williams comes here on January 29th. And the women, they have a couple non-conference games. MCLA and Pine Manor both come January 3rd and 6th respectively. So any fans that are looking to come after the new year, Those are 7 and 1 o'clock matches. Again, MCLA comes for 7, Pine Manor comes for 1 o'clock here at Southern Vermont College. We'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. We will hopefully catch you next week in our final segment of the fall semester. Signing off, this is Mike Nosek alongside Dave Gage. We hope that you all enjoy, and of course, go Mountaineers!